What is up, YouTube? This is John Modern. It's been a little while, but I'm excited to talk about the Yeti SB165 today. This review is pretty candid. I have no notes today. Just gonna talk about the figures that I know about the bike and ride impressions, and we'll go over some comparisons. So I did a frame up build, so don't really pay attention to the parts. The important things to know about the frame are that it is a Yeti bicycle, and it comes with a coil shock. It's 165 mil rear travel. It takes a 170 mil fork, and the rest is custom. It's mullet, so 650 rear, 29 front. Otherwise, just a Yeti frame. There's no in-frame storage. I don't really care about that. If I need, stuff, I strap it to the bike. It's nice to have, not necessary, and this bike doesn't have it. This build is pretty simple. I didn't go with any like beeps and boops. This is a mechanical GX 1x12 drivetrain. I don't care about drivetrains. I don't care about it's just the last thing I think about on a bike. And all of the 1x12 stuff since like 5 years ago is working really well. So I just don't want a bunch of batteries on the bike that I have to worry about. So it's got a GX 1x12. It could, for all intents and purposes, be a Shimano 1x12. I don't really have a strong preference there. It's got the TRP DHR Evo brakes. The ones that are on market currently, and then there's the new ones coming, which I hope to get soon. We've got some sick WeAre1 wheels, and I don't know, probably my favorite part about this kit is the new Schwalbe radial Magic Marys. So they're both in gravity, super soft in the front, soft in the rear. And I'll talk about those tires later. I might do a whole review on those tires. I, for a long time, did not like Schwalbe's, especially not the Magic Marys. But they came on another bike of mine, and I gave them a couple rides, and I couldn't believe how much extra damping they provided. So now they're on all my bikes. So that's that. And yeah, we've got a Fox 38 170 X2 up front. Geometry figures, this is Yeti's play bike. So what they've done is they've added a little bit of rear travel compared to like say the 160, right? You kind of get how their naming convention works. It's got a shorter rear end. It's a 63.5-degree head angle. On a large, this is a 437 mil rear center or chainstay. And that goes up and down. So the XL has a 439. I think it's 2 mil increments, which is kind of cool to see more brands adopting the size specific chainstay lengths. And that's probably the really interesting feature on this bike. I won't jump into too much. On a large, it's a 480. That's a pretty average reach spec for most larges. And 63.5 degrees on the head angle is becoming kind of like right where companies get to. You don't want to get too much slacker, but it also doesn't feel bad with a steep seat tube. So we'll kind of jump into climbing. You know, I just weighed this bike. I was really surprised. It said this bike weighs 36 pounds, but I guess that's kind of just what bikes that have durable stuff weigh now. I was surprised because it doesn't feel that heavy. It doesn't feel that heavy picking it up. It doesn't feel that heavy climbing or just pedaling it around. So that was a bit of surprise to me, but you know, it's got the gravity tires, so the heavy casing, it's got a coil shock, it's got, you know, pedals on it, and I don't know, maybe a pound of mud, not that much, a little bit of mud. Yeah, so climbing, it's pretty good. You know, I've been on a Nomad, a few other big bikes recently, and I'd say it's like middle plus. The only thing I don't like about it while climbing is the lack of support with the rear center. So there are times in technical, slightly steeper sections of trail where you just, even with the steep seat tube angle, because that rear center is a little shorter than some bikes out there these days, you just feel a little over that rear, and you kind of get that like pogo effect when you feel like you're over the rear wheel. And it just means you got to lean a little bit more forward and be a little bit more conscious, but it just takes a little more extra effort to not bounce off the bike through technical climbing. And I noticed that, but everywhere else, like side by side going up smooth sections of trail, climbing, This, let's say compared to the Nomad, this thing just smokes it. It feels light, it feels energetic. It doesn't dive too far into its travel, but it still has a lot of grip. So I really like it. It rides lighter than it is. Yeah, that's all I have to say on climbing. It's pretty good other than certain situations where the short chainstay feels limiting. And I talk about that some in one of the segments that, one of the riding segments that will be in this review. Descending, it's fun. So this is their party bike, right? Like you could get, and it says it on their website. Like if you go to their website, it's the 160s, the racer's bike, and this is like the play bike. And I guess that's kind of true because you do run into its limits at high speed. It starts to feel like a smaller bike. Really what this bike feels like to me is a long-legged trail bike. But what's hilarious about that is you ask people who rode the Red Bull Rampage with the dual crown, and they're like, no, this is a free ride bike. I think that's this bike's kind of secret weapon, is its absolute wide range of ability. Because you can take it to chill, normal trails and still feel there's a lot of fun to be accessed. It doesn't feel muted, it doesn't feel like a big bike at all. And you can climb all day on it. I wouldn't shy away from taking this on high country rides. You know, the Switch Infinity feels amazing. It feels lively. It feels soft. It's forgiving. I never felt any harsh bottom outs. I bought this bike thinking I was only going to go to places that were built like boring climbs with really fun descents that are just like mountain bike specific, mountain bike purpose. And there's a couple of trails being built like that here in Colorado now. And maybe not like the trail bike where I'm going to like White Ranch, which is behind here. But I brought it here for my last day of reviewing it, and I don't know, I had a lot more fun on it than I thought I would. And that kind of speaks to that accessibility that this bike has. You can't put it in any one category firmly. Like you can go to Virginia Canyon, hit the big lines, feel great. It really loves jump lines. I will say, compared to something like the Nomad, it doesn't jump quite as well. Some of that energy is lost on the lips, and it just doesn't have quite the poppiness of like the new VPP out there. But it just, you know, with the short chainstays, going to Floyd Hill and making a quick turn off the diving board at an angle where it always feels kind of weird. You know, you can hit drops at low speed. You can hit all kinds of like little tech moves. If I was going to Squamish, this would be such a fun bike at like Alice Lake, right? Where you're kind of doing all these slow little moves on big rock slabs. It feels really nimble, but again, it's gonna forgive you if you need to go off a big drop. So it's good in so many places. And the one place that maybe it's not perfect at, where maybe you would want a 160, is if like you want King of Mountain on every single like trail where there's technical descents, long descents, and more of a race bike, right? Like more of just a speed demon. Because a speed demon, it is not. Like it's fun. And there's certain sections of trail where if you need to change direction super quickly, this might be better than the 160 just because of the rear center being a little bit shorter. Like it'll change direction really fast, but straightaway chunk, like not the most stable bike I've ridden. But other than that one segment of riding, which can be a lot of people's specialty, right? Like I remember when I got into mountain biking, that's what I got good at first, is going straight fast. And that's all I wanted to do because that's what I was good at. But if you're the kind of rider that wants to go to the park, put a dual crown on it and go to Virgin, Utah, which is what they're doing now, which is crazy to me. Or just kind of ride everything in a fun way and not like a racy way. I think this bike has incredible range and a really, really beautiful suspension to back it up. So comparisons, it's a big 650, so we'll compare it to the Nomad, which I still feel like is the bar for me. The Nomad has a lot longer of a rear center, so it feels less energetic in the climbs compared to this one. Like this bike, you put in pedal input and it's like pretty rewarding. It feels really good to pedal. Whereas the Nomad on the climb, you put in some pedals and it feels like there's something in that suspension just killing your momentum. However, in technical situations, I think the Nomad is better regardless of the energy input because of that longer rear center. It feels more supported. You don't feel as over the rear wheel as you do on this bike. And as a result, you just don't get knocked off of your kind of center of gravity as easily. Downhill, the Nomad, I think, is just more well-rounded. You can blast those straight lines that this one is maybe not as great at. It's a better jumper. I would say though that this bike, the rear suspension is more plush than that version of VPP. I haven't ridden the new Bronson yet. They say they changed it a lot, but I would say that the Switch Infinity is a lot more forgiving in some of the, you know, square edge hits, stuff like that. Who's this bike for? I always get to this section and feel like I've talked about it a ton already. I think it's for people who don't necessarily need a king of mountain and don't come to the trailhead thinking I have to have the fastest time on Strava today. Like, this is the bike for people who just go to Virginia Canyon, Floyd Hill, Maryland Mountain, Left Hand Canyon. It's a great bike for Left Hand Canyon as well, where, you know, you're just playing on the bike. You want to pop a manual really easy. The chainstays support that kind of behavior. And you want to do kind of some slow tech at Alice Lake, it's perfect for that as well. So it really, I think Yeti accomplished exactly what they wanted. You know, they said, okay, if you want to go race enduro, here's your 160. And if you're not a racer and you want to have a ton of fun, here's the 165. It's the party bike. It's like the college dropout brother of the two. And I think it's the more fun one to hang out with. I haven't been on the 160. I've got some friends on the 160 though, and I think it's probably a great bike, but this one's just kind of more likes to party. And yeah, so that's it. Hope you enjoyed the review. Got some other reviews coming shortly, so stay tuned.